Hi, welcome to Formula Citizen, episode 9. In this episode, we say goodbye to Christian Horner. After 20 years as the Red Bull CEO and team principal, Horner has been released from his operational duties effective immediately. I've deliberately waited a few days to produce this podcast because usually when there's news as seismic as this, particularly in the world of Formula One, we see that trigger other announcements, other decisions. I think that's coming in the next few weeks, particularly around the summer break. But in the meantime, let's review this decision and all of the fallout. For me, this is personal. As a sports executive and a fan of Formula One, Christian Horner was my hero. I love the way he went about his business. He was a disruptor. I love what he built at Red Bull. I admired his leadership style, the way he spoke, the way he doubled down, the relentless fight, and the laser focus on winning. For me, he epitomized the Red Bull brand. He was the original. He sold the Red Bull Formula One racing team vision, 405 races, and he never missed a single one. He was so much more than the face of the team. He molded the team around his own personal DNA in many ways, and the team became a powerhouse, and he became a very powerful man. Some have called him hubris in recent days, and I'd argue that it's lonely at the top. It's certainly harder to stay at the top than it is to climb to the top. Christian made a comment recently on Netflix Drive to Survive where he said, "The higher you climb, the sharper the knives." In Australia, we call that tall poppy syndrome. People always want to cut down successful teams and successful individuals. And in the world of Formula One, aka the Piranha Club, that is even more so the case. I challenge the statements being made around his ego. A healthy ego is required to survive in a high-performance culture. The period I admire most in Christian's 20 years at the helm of the Red Bull Formula One racing team is the period between 2014 and 2020, when they had no success, when Mercedes won everything. And yet he kept fighting. He retained Adrian Newey. He unearthed a new young driving talent called Max Verstappen. He searched for an engine solution when Renault couldn't deliver the power output to compete. He wooed Honda to join forces. And he expanded Red Bull's reach by creating an advanced technologies campus that worked on projects outside of Formula One. He did all of that, and for almost a decade, the team had no success. This was seismic news in the world of Formula One. Let's be honest, he did not lose his job. He lost a political power play for control of one of the most powerful sports teams and one of the most iconic marketing brands in the world. There are probably more questions than answers, but to understand the truth, I always believe you need to follow the facts. So what do we know? Horner was announced as CEO and team principal in 2004 at the age of 31. Think about that for a minute. At the age of 31, clearly Red Bull saw leadership talent, and he's delivered over the past 2 decades. The Red Bull Formula One racing team, including Christian Horner, had the full and unconditional support of the Red Bull owner, Dietrich Mateschitz. Mateschitz owned 49% of the parent Red Bull company. The remaining 51% is owned by Thai investors and the founder of the business. He was also the inventor of the energy drink itself. Horner built a dynasty. He won 8 world championships between 2010 and 2013. He built another dynasty, winning 6 world championships between 2021 and 2024. In the world of sport, winning often covers up many of the cracks, particularly around team culture. And during the second period of success in late 2022, Mateschitz died. And so began this leadership vacuum, this power struggle that would be the catalyst for a fight between the 2 Red Bull factions. On one side was Horner, who had the full support from the Thailand faction, and on the other side was Helmut Marko, the senior Red Bull advisor, and the Verstappens, who were in the Austrian camp, led by Group CEO Oliver Mintzlaff. Red Bull Austria, the marketing arm of the global energy drink company, had plans to relocate the Formula One team to Austria. Horner rejected those plans and had expanded the headquarters at Milton Keynes, including significant investment in producing its own engines, and was adamant the team should stay in England. This power struggle continued for 2 years. In 2023, the team broke every record in Formula One when they won 22 of 23 Formula One races, the most dominant season in Formula One history. During that time, allegations first surfaced of Horner's inappropriate behavior towards a female employee. 2 internal investigations cleared him of any wrongdoing, but after a tranche of messages and photos were released to the media and Formula One team bosses, he was never going to outrun this story or fully repair his reputation. Despite all the pressure he was under, he ran for 15 months. During this time, he lost Adrian Newey, his chief designer, Will Courtney, head of strategy, Jonathan Wheatley, sporting director, and Rob Marshall, chief engineering officer, all senior leaders in the team. He re-signed Sergio Perez on a multi-year agreement, and then the team decided to terminate that contract, resulting in an €18 million payout. After this decision, he selected Liam Lawson and replaced him after 2 races. The team had effectively become a one-car team, and this cost millions of dollars in constructors' prize money and bonuses paid to the staff. He had verbal arguments in full view of the world with his star driver's father, Jos Verstappen. The team's on-track performance started to decline, winning only 4 of the past 24 races. It was reported that Max had exit clauses in his Red Bull contract that meant he could depart before the end of his contract at 2028. And then 2 days after the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, Christian Horner was summoned to a meeting in London that was attended by Helmut Marko and Oliver Minschlaff. Horner was informed of the decision, and one request he had was that he asked if he could address the team before the news broke around the world. 12 hours later, at 10 o'clock in the morning, he entered Milton Keynes HQ, a very emotional address to the team, and within 15 minutes he had departed the business alongside 2 of his most closest senior executives, Chief Marketing Officer and Group Communications Director, who both exited the business. The statement read quite simply, Red Bull has released Christian Horner from his operational duties with immediate effect from today, the 9th of July, and has appointed Laurent Mekies as CEO of Red Bull Racing. He's currently on gardening leave until the end of 2025. And the important point here is he's still a Red Bull employee until 2030. He's been released, but he hasn't actually been terminated. So I imagine right now the lawyers are sitting down to formally negotiate a settlement, which is rumored to be in excess of $100 million. Now, that payout will ultimately be determined by many factors, including recent team performance, individual conduct. There may be some arguments that there's been some damage to the Red Bull reputation and brand. Striking a balance around his restraint of trade. They'll know that he's carrying some IP, but the sooner that they release him, the less of the payment. So there's some work to do, but that's probably happening in the background as we speak. He was a great leader, but clearly his personal brand has been tarnished more recently. And like any CEO, you're the sum of your decisions and behavior, and the board ultimately lost confidence in his leadership. The timing for me is interesting. Was this announcement a shock? No. Was the timing a shock? Yes. But was the method in which it was carried out a shock? Absolutely. No matter what you think of Christian Horner, given his legacy in the sport, he deserved to exit at the end of the season and have this framed as a resignation. He deserved better. So why has he been terminated? That answer will depend on whether Max stays or goes. And I believe we'll find that out in the next few weeks. We'll move on to Max in a moment. But first, I want to talk about, I guess, some of the business lessons that you can take out of this decision and some of the key moments that led to this decision. The first is that this is a case study that demonstrates the importance of having effective succession planning in place. Red Bull was a family-owned business, 2 powerful, wealthy families. And after the death of the Red Bull talisman, Dietrich Mateschitz, as the leader of the organization, there was no clear plan in place. Did he leave instructions for his son or the team? Did management try to ambush the future of the team? Regardless, these political power plays took over and the rest is history. The second point I'd make is that structure follows strategy. The role Christian was operating in perhaps was no longer fit for purpose. Across the paddock, in terms of best practice, we're starting to see a splitting of the roles between CEO and team principal. And furthermore, the team principal role is occupied throughout the paddock by engineers who can solve performance problems. The third point I make is around talent. Talent is hard to attract, but it's even harder to retain. And everyone is talking about the loss of the senior leaders from the Red Bull business. But the reality is that competitors will always poach talent. Horner believed in the depth of his team. He believed in promoting from within. And my understanding is that he invested heavily in training and development to foster that culture, which is why there were a lot of people that were very emotional within Milton Keynes' head office when he made the announcement last Wednesday. What next? It's been widely reported that Max has performance clauses in his contract. This is the number one question for me. Did his team give notice to Red Bull that he intends to exit his contract early? And this decision to release Christian Horner was a reaction to that notice. That would seem logical in terms of explaining the mid-season timing. Did Team Verstappen say it's him or me? That's plausible, but I believe it's more likely to be the latter. Was that Christian Horner's doing? Did he structure it that way? Or did Max have a lot of veto rights within his contract? We know he had provisions around the second driver. He also had a clause that's been widely reported that he could exit if Helmut Marko left the business, which gave him an insurance policy. More recently, there's been a lot of talk around some performance clauses. He's currently third in the drivers' standings. Was that enough for him to trigger an exit at the midpoint in the season? It's also been widely reported that the Mercedes chairman and board have given the green light to sign Max, including the rumoured $102 million buyout clause from his Red Bull contract. Where there's smoke, there's fire in Formula One. I believe there's some truth to these rumours. The other options that he's considering is a big money offer to go to Aston Martin, or he can wait. They're really the three options. He waits and sees how the rule changes in 2026 impact performance. He can go to Mercedes now, or he can go to Aston Martin. Here's my summary. All empires crumble. Professional sport is cyclic. Red Bull will rebuild. I believe Max will leave, and I also believe Christian Horner will return. Max has already signed an option to drive for Mercedes. That's my prediction. We'll find out if that's the case in the next few weeks, because Mercedes need to handle Kimi Antonelli and George Russell's contracts. They're both out of contract at the end of the year, both currently driving for Mercedes. So you would expect an announcement in the coming weeks. But this will be a phased comms piece, but they'll clearly have to lead out with Max Verstappen if he has signed with Mercedes. I believe that if that happens, it'll trigger George Russell moving to Aston Martin. Aston Martin have got Mercedes engines. It's a good brand fit. Toto manages George's career and owns a private stake in the Aston Martin parent company. He clearly has a close working relationship or a business relationship with Lawrence Stroll, who's the owner of Aston Martin. It makes good business sense. And I believe Mercedes will want to keep the 18-year-old rookie, Kimi Antonelli, at Mercedes, learning from Max. And I believe that's their succession plan longer term. What about Christian Horner? He's got two options to consider. One, he can sign, an equity ownership in Alpine. So rather than being an employee, he actually has a stake in the team, has some skin in the game. And could potentially return to the grid as early as 2026 as team principal. The other option is that he signs Ferrari. There's been a lot of talk about the future of Fred Vasseur at Ferrari. Is Ferrari's leadership looking to make a change? What if, in the last few months, the rumours around Christian Horner moving to Ferrari are actually true? What if they've made contact and Red Bull have got wind of it and they're concerned about IP? And they've taken a preemptive decision to terminate his contract. That would mean him relocating potentially to Italy. He's got a young family, so there's some considerations there in terms of his personal circumstances. I certainly believe that given his exit, he'll want to return and make a statement. So when the time's right and when he's served his gardening leave, I think we'll see him back. I think the next decision to be made is the future of Max Verstappen. There's a lot happening on the track, which is super exciting, but it's always great when there's as much to talk about off the track as well, as teams start to jockey for position, heading to what is a significant regulation change in 2026, which is going to shake up the grid. And at the moment, there's a fight for talent and a fight for IP. And it's super exciting. Thanks for listening. I'll return with episode 10 after the Belgium Grand Prix in Spa. Thanks for listening. Bye.